Lesson 2. Setting the Scene. The Srimad Bhagavatam consists of two principal narrations woven together. 1. A conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and King Pariksit, which took place on the bank of the Ganges with many sages present. Sukadeva Goswami was the son of Vedavyas, the compiler of Vedic scriptures. 2. Suta Goswami, one of those sages gathered on the banks of the Ganges, travelled to a great assembly of sages in Naimisharan forest, and there he repeated what he had heard, plus he answered questions from those sages. Here is the historical background story of the narration that took place between Sukadeva Goswami and King Pariksit. King Pariksit was the son of Abhimanyu and the grandson of the great warrior Arjuna. One day, while King Pariksit was hunting, which many Kshatriya kings did in that era, he became thirsty and tired. He was about 60 years old at that time, and while looking for water came across the hermitage of the sage Shamik. However, the sage was in deep meditation and completely unaware of the king's presence. King Pariksit did not realize the reason for the sage's silence and felt insulted. Considering that he was being ignored, he responded by taking a dead snake with the end of his bow and placing as a garland around the sage. He then rode away. Meanwhile, the young son of the sage was playing with his friends. When he returned to his father's hermitage and saw the dead snake on his father's shoulders, he began to weep loudly. The boy cursed aloud, saying that within 7 days, the poisonous snake Takshaka would bite the man who had insulted his father, thus killing him. The boy was then informed it was the king who had placed the snake garland on his father. On hearing the sobbing of his son, the sage came out of his trance. He opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his shoulders. But as an elevated sage, he did not consider it important and merely threw it away. He then asked his son why he was crying. However, on hearing the entire story, the sage felt remorse at what his son had done. He chastised him, saying that he had committed a great sin by giving such a grave punishment for a small mistake, and that he was very immature to consider the king an ordinary person. At that time, King Pariksit returned to his palace. Putting his crown aside, he realized his mistake and felt saddened at his treatment of the innocent sage. As he thought in this manner, a disciple of the sage came to Maharaj Pariksit to warn him of the curse that was put on him by the sage's son. The king, accepting his fate as a blessing, handed over his kingdom to his son Janamejaya and went to the banks of the Ganges to fast for the 7 days before he was to be bitten by the snake. The news of this travelled rapidly and brought many sages along with their disciples to the banks of the Ganges. The king was happy to see all the holy men assembled there and worshipped them by bowing his head as they arrived. Then the king asked them, "O great sages, what is the most important duty of one who is about to die? Please consider this." All the sages who had gathered around King Pariksit deliberated on this question. At that time, the great sage Sukadeva, the 16-year-old son of Vyasadeva, was wandering nearby. free from all cares and completely content within himself. He appeared on the scene in the presence of the sages and King Pariksit. All present in that assembly of sages and sadhus stood up to pay their respects to Sukadev. King Pariksit humbly addressed Sukadev. "You are the supreme among saints, therefore I would like to ask, what should a man do who is about to die? What should he hear, chant, remember, and worship?" Sukadev responded, "The question you have asked is glorious, because it is beneficial to everyone. The answer to this question is the prime subject for life, and is approved by all transcendentalists. At the last stage of life, one should be bold enough to not be afraid of death." In this way, to answer the request of Maharaj Pariksit, the nectar of spiritual truth flowed from the lips of Sukadev Goswami. This discussion of all the most important of spiritual topics became the Srimad Bhagavatam. After the whole Bhagavatam had been discussed, Sukadev concluded that for a person who is suffering in the fire of countless miseries and who desires to cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence, there is no vehicle more suitable than cultivating a transcendental taste for the narrations of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After the recitation, King Pariksit thanked Sukadev Goswami for his merciful instructions and said, "Now I have achieved the purpose of life. You have personally related to me the narration of the Supreme Lord and have revealed to me what is the most auspicious knowledge, the supreme personal feature of God. I am now full of transcendental knowledge and self-realization, and my ignorance has been eradicated. I no longer have any fear of the Takshaka snake or any other living being, because I have absorbed myself in the purely spiritual absolute truth. Kindly allow me to absorb my mind, purified of all lusty desires, and thus give up my life." Then Sukadev, along with the other sages, departed after blessing the king. Pariksit then laid daba grass on the bank of the Ganges with the tips of the stalks facing east, and he turned himself towards the north. The king settled his mind within and became as stationary as a tree. As the time came when the curse was to take effect, the snake bird Takshaka, who could change into any shape he wanted, approached King Pariksit in the guise of a Brahmin to bite him. As Takshaka came close to the area where the king was, he met the Brahmin Kashyapa Muni who was travelling there. Takshaka asked where he was going. Kashyapati Muni, who knew the science of counteracting poisons, said he was going to meet King Pariksit because he could neutralize the effect of the snake bite. To test the sage, Takshaka exposed his fangs and bit a green tree, which turned into ashes in seconds. Kashyapa chanted some mantras, and the tree was restored and as green as before. Takshaka asked the sage if he was going to the king in order to receive rewards for his knowledge, and the sage replied to the affirmative. Takshaka said that he could reward Kashyapa more than the king if he would go away. So the Brahmin Kashyapa took a large amount of wealth from Takshaka and returned to his home. When Takshaka arrived where King Pariksit was, he was not allowed to enter. Therefore he changed himself into a caterpillar and entered one of the fruit baskets being taken to the king's area. On reaching the king, Takshaka came out of the fruit and assumed the form of a Brahmin and easily approached the king. Then he assumed his form of a large snake, and while the king was in meditation, bit him. As everyone looked on in horror, the king's body was immediately turned to ashes by the fire of the snake's poison. Thus Maharaj Pariksit left and entered the spiritual world. It is said that only after many lifetimes of performing pious acts does one achieve the opportunity of being able to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. Consequently, by the mercy of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who brought the Srimad Bhagavatam to the West and translated it into English, we have access to this scripture. Let us begin with Canto 1 in the following Lesson 3. Namaste.